Good evening. The regular meeting of the Richmond Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Richmond Community Schools, we provide quality education and empower students to be successful in a global community. Thank you. Roll call please. Here. Margaret? Here. And here. Deb? Here. Angela? Here. Danielle? Here. Kyle?
Here.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Do I have support? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the consent agenda as presented in the attached documentation.
Do I have support? Support. Any discussion? Mr. Walmsley?
I'd just like to recognize a couple individuals who have either resigned or retired from the district. Marie Cass, Title I Parapro at Richmond Middle School, submitted her resignation. Mr. Koshin, principal at Lee Elementary School, submitted his retirement. Nick Mathis, co-head coach of the robotics, submitted a resignation. Karen Montgomery, a bus driver, submitted her retirement. In the paperwork, as you note in the personnel report, she will be coming back to set bus drive for us. And James Schwartz, girls varsity tennis coach, submitted his resignation. We have a couple new hires. Richard Brand, junior varsity, JV assistant football coach. Tiffany Meach, fourth grade teacher to fill the fourth grade position at the middle school. Haley Reed, food service department. If you recall, Haley was an employee in the district, resigned. You accepted her resignation. She wants to come back, so she's already been trained, so that we welcome her back. And Megan Rowland, Spanish teacher at Richmond Middle School and Richmond High School. I had no questions regarding the minutes or the questions regarding the claims and accounts for June or July.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Walmsley, what's the status on the transportation director position?
We actually have an internal candidate. New Haven is looking to eventually master a partnership. And so in conversation with our internal candidate, we think it might be a good transition. The position, they don't want to bring someone from the outside if they're going to slowly do their own director position. That was in the last week that was came from. So just got to finalize that little details.
Anybody else? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Mr. Walmsley, a bond update.
Hey, tonight we're here to give you an update on what's going on in the buildings, some completions and things that we are still working on, as well as something that came up over the summer that we had to act on, which is why the language when you approved all the contracts is written the way it is to allow us that, and we are bringing it to the board at the next meeting. So Jerry, I hope is here. I will turn it over to Jerry to start this.
Thank you, Brian. Well, I would say if we didn't have 2020 as an example, 2021 would be a year of tremendous surprises. But 2020 taught us to be ready for most anything. This year we have seen steel delays, paint shortages, things as goofy as not being able to get flooring adhesive because we didn't have the buckets because of the plastic shortage. So we dealt with, our team dealt with a lot of things. Brian brought up one major item that we did have to update you on. The flooring, as you know, this bond program had a tremendous amount of flooring replacement. Basically, almost the entire district was getting new flooring. The buildings had a bunch of asbestos flooring. And Asbestos, as we all know, is not a material we use widely now, known to cause cancer and issues with that. But it was a great building material because it would stand up to just about anything, and the adhesives that we had would stick to anything. Our current adhesives that we deal with flooring are not as durable or able to stick to as much. As we got into the flooring removal, particularly at the middle school, moisture from the ground finds its way through the concrete slabs. The older the buildings are, the less likely they are to have a vapor barrier, that plastic that we put under the slabs now to prevent that vapor from coming up through the slab. At the middle school itself, we removed the flooring and actually we're doing the other work, and we've got that 28 or 32 days of rain back at the beginning of the summer. That water started to present itself as vapor coming through, and you can see the pattern on the floor where the tile was. And also in that process, as part of French specifications, we're to test the floor once we get the old flooring removed for moisture percentage and pH. Those are the two things that come into contact that can cause problems with the adhesive, cause failure on flooring. At the middle school, the problem was much more significant, but at the high school, not as apparent. But when we did the testing, the RH, the relative humidity of that slab, is in the high 90s, which anything basically over 90 gets into an area of concern. 95 and above, you need to treat it. Elementary school did not present as big of a problem. We did not have issues there. At the high school, we were able to implement a product by TEC called Liquid Dam EZ, and as in the title, EZ means it's a little bit easier to put down. It was a roll-on product. That product was about $2.30 a square foot, came to about $152,000 that we had to put into the high school. At the middle school, we had to use a Cardex product because it was a much more severe problem. That ended up costing about $380,000. So what these are epoxy that's put on the floor. Or at the middle school, it's much more substantial. And if you've seen, we've had trucks over there. These guys have been working long hours. And as Brian mentioned, we needed to make a quick decision on that because of the amount of work that has to take place and the flooring that has to go on there to get everybody moved back into the school. So we vetted these products with French, discussed with Brian. Brian actually met us on site on one of his few vacation days, and we walked through the site and we vetted many other products. These were deemed to be the right solution for the long-term flooring in the district.
Just to give you a perspective, if you've got a high school student in the science lab, that tile that went down in the science rooms was right at that board time, and so some of the tiles were popping. That's because of the moisture. And if we didn't address it, all the carpet that we're putting down, all the flooring tile potentially is going to start, that glue is going to start coming away, and we're back to square one of a larger problem. So.
On the other things that we are dealing with this year, one of our major suppliers of casework is having what I would consider a manufacturing crisis. They cannot get people online to work, and they have delayed the delivery of the casework for the middle school and the elementary. Both of those we are working around. We have come up with ways to get sinks where they're needed. The installer, the contractor, is offered to put brackets up, we'll get the counters in place and get the sinks in and get things usable. We will be needing them to go on shift to install some of this after school starts. Our push is to try and get as much in as we can. The elementary school delivery is the week of the 7th. So we've got a short window to get some stuff in, but we know there's probably more work to do. We're going to work to get as much as we can done. And then at the middle school, the delivery is a little bit better. That ship date is the week of the 20th. So that's a little bit more time for us to get things in. We're going to focus. Brian has given us priority areas to get art rooms in those areas where it's much more disruptive to not not have. But we're addressing that. The high school was a different casework supplier, and those cabinets, it wasn't as big a order, those cabinets have already been, many of them are installed.
So just to give you perspective, the elementary school, we're talking the 8 primary preschool classrooms, the existing classroom. So what Jerry explained is we have a solution to get us open, assuming the product comes the week of the 7th. We could actually have them installed before kids actually come, but we're talking preschool classroom in the staff lounge, the countertops in the staff lounge, and in the steam room, there's one side that has cabinets, and we're talking the other side. Again, we prioritize with what we needed to be functional and operational, with particularly the preschool classroom. At the middle school, we're talking band cabinets. Right now, I'm talking to band director Molly. We're going to put the instruments on the stage, and as soon as those cabinets are in, they immediately put it there. It's right next door to the room, so we can put them in there. We're talking the art room cabinets, so we have we have portable shelving that we're bringing in just in case they aren't here, so we have a plan ready to go if we need to. And then you'll have the new staff lounge, as well as the main office. The back, the main countertop is already in the main office as you walk in, but there are certain areas, so we're prioritizing the ones that are directly affecting students and teachers.
Another item, this isn't uncommon, boilers, we replace the boilers in all 3 buildings. They are installed, they are here, and we are doing the final piping, the exhaust breaching on all 3 are being delivered this week. What happens with that is that it's something that's not absolutely needed to open the building in our early fall, but it's something that we put on the list so everyone's aware. There will be some work, mostly that's going to be in finalizing and commissioning those to get those ready to go. But they will be working on those potentially into school. The gyms in the high school and middle school, and these are mostly more to do with the fact that we stored a lot of stuff in them to get that work done. We're working as hard as we can to get all of this done, but just, as you see things, these are the areas that a lot of things had to go so we can do the other work in the building. We do put a corridor floors in the middle school in particular on the list. We feel we're going to get that done, but we want to put it on there that we're focusing on the classrooms, get those done. You know that in the spring we did remove the flooring in the corridors early on, and it's not impossible to work. It's not what we want to do, but that is an area that we could be working on right up until open. Then on the high school, and I think we've been pretty clear with this, the new auxiliary gym, that's just too big of a scope to open in the fall. That will not open with renovation. Then the entrances at the middle school and the high school, blue brick. And again, this is something that the supply chain just is not functioning as it should. Blue brick, they're going to look great when we get them installed, but and they're supposed to, not where they're supposed to be here the 20th. But without those other pieces can't go into place on those entrances. And in the, we've got an item on the list over here called wet areas, so your locker rooms and those areas. We've revised some light fixtures to make sure we get the proper ones in there. Those, I believe, the existing fixtures stay until we get older, new ones, that will replace those. But again, that may be work that's happening on shift after school's open. Lockers, this is only at the high school. The athletic lockers, there's a locker manufacturer that is just not, they won't even give us a date of when their delivery is. We continue to talk about them with Brian and what we can do. Unfortunately, with that particular product, I was telling Brian in the fall, Richmond schools bid exactly at the right time when they did, because after we bid, we saw prices escalate. We saw right now to get the steel that we have in the gymnasium is about a 40-week lead time. We knew it was a long week when we started, and that's why you saw that steel show up before the block went up. We said, get it to us now. There's a huge shortage nationwide on steel. These lockers, this locker manufacturer is just almost non-communicative. Now, they are below the performance bond level. So really, we have a contract, they've delivered nothing, we've paid them nothing. So the district is only at a point where, we've got to look at what we want to do. If they can honor their contract and give us a delivery date, I would say the best position is to continue with them and get those lockers. But if they continue down the road they have to this point, we'll probably be back to you in a month to talk about what other action we can.
So with those lockers at the middle school, the new student lockers are in. Down the hallway, probably the media center, as well as around the new art room area. The new girls' locker room at the middle school, those lockers are in. Like I said, as Jerry said, at the high school, we did not take out the athletic lockers, knowing that there was a delay. So they are still lockers for students to use. We'll just have to swap them out at the time we actually get the lockers. So.
And at that point, we'll be talking to Brian and the team about when does that make sense. We don't want to disrupt, any more any teams and what they have to deal with. If this is something we need to wait, even potentially to the next summer, then that would probably be our recommendation. And then all of the buildings with that new brick, the canopies, the metal canopies, this is a complicated, everything comes together, and the metal panels can measure glass. Because those other components aren't there, those will be, in some cases, you will see canopies complete with the metal on them, really the fall here. Other areas, it's going to take a little longer. Those are the main areas that we're looking at. We are still on track and working with the inspectors to get all of the life safety items in, all of the things that will allow us to have classroom.
So with that, I will just give an update as you walk through, and if any board member wants to take a tour, just give me a call. Make sure you bring your hard hat, because it is still a work zone. I'm more than happy to walk through. But the classrooms are, almost all of them are painted, ceilings are up, new lighting's up, new flooring's put in. There are some that they're still working on. Some of the corridors, they started laying down the flooring in the corridors. The clocks have been installed. The elementary school, all the new technology has been installed in the classrooms. The interactive camera systems, as well as the camera security system, is being reinstalled in the ceiling. Most of the grid up through the hallway, actually no, all the grid at the middle school is up, except for just some small areas they're working in right now. High school, most of the grid is up, so they'll start laying the ceiling tiles and closing it up. Even though there's some things that are out of control that will not be done, or will be pushing the envelope to the 11th hour, we will be open. But there's a lot of good things that have been completed, and just the look in the classrooms are really dynamic. We met today. We are planning on starting to unload the trailers Thursday the 19th, the 20th, Saturday the 21st, 22nd. So our goal is to have, if not all the trailers, a good chunk of the trailers out of the parking lot through that weekend. Athletics will go last, because the stuff that's in the trailer that's athletic is for winter and spring sports. So we may relocate those trailers. Today they moved all the buses back to the bus lot. They started it last week. See the string up, they're getting ready to put the fencing and the gates from the bus garage. That's the part. They were laying the framework around the high school front parking lot. Once that curves are in, we'll go. Pray for no rain. Rain just put us behind.
Just 3 days of sunshine for every day of rain. Put that in your prayers.
But no, it is, like I said, I'd be more than happy if you want to come through. Just give me a call, send me back, and bring your hard hat and walk through and get a better perspective. Every week it's significant progress. A couple weeks ago I did take a short time to go on camping with my family, and I was a little nervous, but when I came back, a lot of things finished, and things are starting to close up, which is cool. The other day there was probably 100 people at the middle school over here. They're just been nonstop. So.
Our team with the campus, I mentioned this to Brian, this is stressful for us to take this many buildings down, and to see it come shaped like it is. And the biggest thing we were always nervous about is we took power down in 2 buildings. Elementary school, DT, where it was, they had storms and things, the high school as well. We were scheduled to get the transformer set the day that the tornado hit, just a little bit outside. So DT has been very accommodating in some circumstances that they have as well. We got the transformers back up, we got our generators, there's some question of where those were. Really, anything with any kind of electronics in it right now is very difficult to get. So.
With that, we take any questions. If you have any on the line.
I just to clarify, when you're talking about the entrances to the buildings, it's looks, everything's secure.
Yes.
All of the
It's
entries
all
are secure, it's
stacked.
just a brick, we're just talking about the facades.
Yeah, it's all of the canopy, true canopy elements. The glass, the doors, all of that is in place, will be in place. This is the pretty stuff.
The pretty stuff. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our presentation section. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Thompson.
Every year we bring the student parent handbook to the board. There's no significant changes. We've updated, so Ms. Era's here to talk about the changes. You have a copy of it in your packet.
Yeah. Hi, good evening. You can just see on page 2, there's been some name changes. We're just going to go through page by page, and if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and ask them. On page 7, the red, the acceptance of rights and responsibilities is actually supposed to be kept. What we wanted to try to do is keep the number forms out of the handbook, because kids and families aren't going to come in and say, excuse me, can I have form 570B? They're really just going to ask for the name of it, and I think just for clarity reasons that makes sense for us to have that in this particular handbook. Same thing, the board policies, if we, update any kind of policies or anything, first of all, we wanted to keep it consistent. Sometimes board policy is cited, sometimes it's not. Also, if it's, let's just say, reviewed and altered, let's just say September, October, then we can go a full several months without this kind of conflicting information. So just trying to keep it consistent. So once again, the form change was removed. On the next page, anytime COVID-19 preparedness and response plan is mentioned, that particular plan is not a valid document for the 21-22 school year, and any reference to that plan has been changed to directions from the district. On page 10, I know this sounds really funny, but there wasn't anything previously for middle school or elementary school children for electronic devices regarding emergency drills, so we definitely had to update that since everybody seems to have them. Once again, on page 11, it's just omitting the 534041 form and just adding in the name of the form, which is the general liability form.
And that form is what we use with SETSA, the district insurance company.
There's been some grammatical changes, not much to note. Omission of the board policy number, page 13. The review of instructional materials. There's no need to specifically recognize that it deals with the reviewing materials for health and sex education. The actual policy says parents can review any instructional materials, and so that's what we wanted to have light of. Once again, just taking out the remaining board policy numbers. Anybody have any questions? And we're going through, just taking out numbers. Form numbers, just keeping the names of the forms. Once again, page 22, the mention of the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Taken out. Name changes on page 23, and the omission of the name of the form as regards to numbers. Credit recovery had a bit of changes. E2020 is no longer the name of the program. And instead of changing it to like Edgenuity, we don't want to pigeon ourselves into just one type of virtual instruction. So we will just keep it as virtual or instruction credit recovery courses. We provided more clarity on page 27 regarding the grading policy for middle school students taking high school credits. And that's been taken right out of the grading policy for our course catalog. Once again, page 30, we're just changing E2020 to be more updated and talking about other online platforms being used. On page 36, we omitted the chunk regarding the training that is required by building principals as far as teaching children how to use the internet. So all internet users should just be able to use our policy and look at our technology usage guidelines.
Excuse me, what if they don't sign the agreement?
It's not about signing the agreement, it's regarding the principals are responsible for providing a training.
But doesn't it say they're all internet users and their parents, if they are minors, are required to sign a written agreement?
And that's been kept. That part has been kept.
So my question is, what if they don't?
If
Are
they don't-
they not able to use the internet?
Right,
So that,
yeah, that's part of our,
Technically, that is true. If you don't sign and agree to the terms and conditions to use the internet, that is true. There's a lot of times it's a conversation because there may be certain pieces, particularly younger kids, that the parents do not want them to have access to, that we work through with that individual parent, help them understand. But you are right, by policy, there's a recognition that they should be following the procedures outlined or the code of conduct outlined on how appropriately use the technology.
and you can see everything is red except for that line that says all internet users and their parents, if they are minors, are required to sign the written agreement. On page 41, parents can still turn in documentation to receive a verified absence status. So the line next to it that says, so the statement seemed to be a bit redundant as far as that they must provide explanation. In order to get the verified absence status, they have to provide the appropriate documentation.
And just as a reminder to the board, we do not excuse absences as a district. We just say are either verified by a parent or documentation or they are unverified. And where that comes into play is if we have a student where there's a truancy issue and you're dealing with the attendance officer, they're looking at does the school have verification that the child is asking whatever the parent had provided. If not, then it's a different road that the truancy officer goes on.
Next on page 44, regarding the COVID-19 facial coverings, we made the note that they are not required to be worn unless mandated by health department orders. And lastly, the other change, is on page 62 where we updated our social media outlets for relevance, taking out some of the older ones. Does anybody have any questions about the updates to the 21-22 student parent handbook?
I just have a question. Is there a place for the parent and their student to sign?
That's a very good question. This year, we are going to use our online portal. And so when the parents get their welcome back letter, they will be logging into the portal and approving instead of sending it back. So for instance, when you do your address or your phone number change and so forth, when it's approved, it automatically changes in the PowerSchool instead of having someone manually entering risk and worry. Now, if there are parents that do not want to use the portal, we have a paper copy that we would be able to. Because we have a small portion of our families that do not want to use the parent portal. We started this year with the online registration, and it's been very successful. We tweaked it so Pam and the administrators, when they get back, will be going through what the forms look like for the parents to sign.
And there's a lovely video
Yeah.
about how to do that.
But my other question, I don't know, maybe it's for Brian, on page 15, I think I've asked this before, but
15?
15, where it talks about the fines and the supplies, and it says that if they don't pay them, we may withhold a student's diploma. You can't do that legally, can we?
We can't withhold the diploma, we can withhold graduation ceremony.
And we probably shouldn't have that in there that says they may withhold their diploma. We can keep them from doing graduation, that's later on. I think you want to take that out.
Yep. Thank you for catching it.
Anybody else have any other questions?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So this will come back to you at the next meeting. And if you do catch something or come across something, you may amend it or come back at the next meeting for approval.
Okay. Next presentation on the board is our budget.
Okay, I'm going to start it, and Tammy will help me out where we need to discuss it. When you approved the board or the budget back in June, it was built on a lot of assumptions, and since that budget was approved, there are new things that we now learn for fact. So, for instance, at the top of the sheet in your packet, you'll see that we had planned on putting $20,000 into fund balance, or fund equity. Our revenue exceeded expenses. That was using it, I believe it was $100 per pupil increase, a flat enrollment, etc. Since that time, the state has moved all districts up to at least the minimum foundation allowance. So for Richmond, that is approximately $716,000 increase over in revenue. Since when we talked about the last budget, part of the conversation the board had was if we had dollars, should we start looking at setting aside a line item for long-term replacements, as well as some of the other items such as pay to participate and the band and art budgets. What Tammy has done, and we from that $716,000, if the board wanted to choose to put a line item so that we had a bus replacement every year, regardless of whether we have a bond or not. Start putting dollars aside so that in the year that you're going to, whatever board's sitting here, will need to replace the turf field, the dollars will be there to replace that field. Long-term, looking at student and staff laptop replacements. In the last 3 years, all the laptops and desktops have now been replaced. As a side note, we did get our order in well enough, so all those are in. So we're not dealing with the chip shortage that some other districts in place their orders are. So you see those line items there from $100,000 to $52,000 to $80,000 to $40,000. We've got some potential additional expenses, which would be looking at an additional teaching position. Our kindergarten numbers are approximately 104 on any given day solid, which is 26 if you do the 4 sections. With some of our kindergartners who have not opted for preschool last year because of the pandemic. They may be behind a normal kindergarten who may have had a preschool experience. So one of the options would be looking at lowering the class size in kindergarten to having 5 sections. Increasing the budgets in the art and the choir. The settlement of the REA contract, the settlement of the RAA contract, the settlement of the secretarial contract, the settlement of the parapro contract. That was not a line item because it was already settled, so we already had built in those costs when we did the budget in June. And the non-union increases contract. There's a line item about decreasing an administrator. Individually, some board members have talked to me, again, not as a collective board, but individually, about administrative staff and maybe being overstaffed. We do have a vacancy right now. This would be an opportunity if we wanted to reduce and not fill and then reassign administrators or look at the structure. If you wanted to decrease pay to participate, we budgeted $55,000 and not have pay to participate. So with all those pluses and minuses going through there, this would put about approximately $98,000 into fund balance at the end of this year. Again, this is assuming a flat enrollment. So if our enrollment is down, that would come off of that bottom line dollar. Things that we are watching out for that would come in a future budget amendment would be the fuel prices. If you go to the pump, you know the fuel prices are up. We are anticipating a normal school year, normal athletic runs, normal bus runs. We anticipate our cost for fuel to be higher. So we'll be watching that. With the adding of air conditioning to the buildings, until we have a year of running it, really we can project the baseline, but that is something that we are going to be watching. And then the possible opening up the buildings, we're going to need staff, additional staff to come in earlier than they normally did to unpack and get us ready to open. And we're trying to do it within the confines of the contract, but there may be situations where storage, stock rooms or storage rooms need to be unpacked and put away that the building office staff has their own beginning of the year stuff that they got to do. I'm cautious on making sure they're able to operate. So we may need to have some additional staff hours where people are coming in once we're ready to unpack and put things away. Some of that is already built in, the schedules and work schedules, but we're just anticipating the additional movement in that cost. So these are some options as a board. I know some of these conversations were at our June meeting. So at this point, I'll leave it open and looking for directions on amending the budget. I guess this will be the first amendment. Now that we know what the additional revenue is and where you want to allocate those funds as a district.
I have just a quick question. The turf only has 52,000. We know the cost of that is more. Am I correct?
What we did was, and I did not bring it in one of the previous budget, that's over a 10 to 12 year period. The turf, based on the usage, we believe it to be longer than the 10 year that was the norm of the conversation when we first went to the bond. We don't run the cross, I don't know, some of the other sports that may have more of a take a wear and tear on the field. So this would be spreading it out over approximately probably 12 years-ish, which is giving around that 600,000. We're getting closer to that now. Remember, a lot of the infrastructure is already done for that turf, the drainage and all that. So unless there's a failure for that, we shouldn't have those costs in that future year. So we're really just talking about the actual carpet for the turf and the rubberized pellets.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian, for the bus replacement, did you say at the end of this bond there's cost for that, or was that the last one?
We have in the 2024 series, the last series that sold one bus. So this current school year and next school year, we do not have any bond dollars that would pay for a bus replacement. So we would use this allocation this year, next year, during the 2024, I guess it'd be the 23-24 school year. You could use bond dollars that year and not use general fund.
Do you see, are we going to have to replace one?
I was just going to say, are we going to share?
Typically, you should be replacing based on our fleet at least 1 year. They usually stay at about 10 years. We push them to 12 because we have 12 buses on the road. So every once in a while, we had a couple of years where we got 2 smaller buses. So we replaced. So for our district, 1 year is approximately the average to have a fleet that is updated.
My question was on the FTE for the administrator, besides saving money, what are the pros and cons to taking that out and just shuffling people around as opposed to hiring somebody new? What would be a benefit to that?
Well, the con is less people to do the duties of what needs to be done. So we'd have to reallocate what some people do may go to a different person to be able to balance them. Does it look like my goal is to maintain at least 2 at every building because there's 2. There is a side of both administrators being there that does help the building run operationally as well as dealing with behavior. So that is the con. The pro is that any near future, if the budget required a cut, we've already made that and we're kind of as lean as we can be. just it's an
Where
option.
would that administrator come from then? If you're shuffling, I mean,
Right now, I have to fill.
where would you anticipate taking somebody from? What building would have less in order to accommodate having that principal in the elementary?
There are multiple plans that I've thought of, what this would look like. My first priority would be identify who the principal is at Lee,
Right.
so that we maintain that our building has a full principal. Then I would look at the deans, the other support staff that we have, the director of student support services, director of athletics, and see is there any duties or reductions that we can make to shuffle so we have two bodies, two people at every building. I don't have a final plan to present, it's just more about, if that's a road you guys want to look at to create the reduction, I need then sit down with my team and say, okay, now what's in the best interest, where would things go, what would need to be shuffled from this person to the next person, and then have a conversation with the administrators affected.
So what building, just because I don't know, what building has 3 right now that there is 7?
Well, going into next year, you have, at the high school, you have Mr. Castle and Mrs. Borg, principal and dean. At the middle school, you have Mr. Bartels and Mr. Burkhardt, principal and dean.
Yeah.
At the elementary school right now, you have Mrs. Mangoni, who's the dean. And then we have 2 district-level individuals with Mr. Reinhardt, who does director of athletics, facility, and school safety. And we have Mrs. Lashbrook, who does student support services. Mrs. Lashbrook's office will be moved over into where the board office is, so that she can service and be in all 3 buildings and not, and she's very good at this. I don't mean to provide that she is a high school administrator, but sometimes it can be perceived if you're there that you are a high school. And Mr. Reinhardt is currently housed at the high school.
Okay, that makes sense.
So from where they're physically located, there are 3 in the next 3 administrators at the high school, 2 at the middle school,
Okay.
and currently 1 at the elementary school.
Gotcha.
And then 1 at central office. And the only reason that I put it on there is because I do, I'm not looking at, I'll be honest, cut anything, but this gives us an opportunity through attrition that it would affect nobody. A couple of years ago, when we passed the budget, we did lay off an administrator for a period, and it did affect someone. So other than reassigning the duties and so forth, nobody's losing a job. And you go, and I'm going to make light of it, it's not an easy decision, but part of it is to look at, I'm really looking at those kindergarten numbers, and if you're still assuming a flat enrollment, this would bring those kindergarten numbers to 20, 21 in a class. 20,
So-
21, 21, 21, 21.
So then is the question of us, or the, and if I use this word, it's not going to be the right word, but I'm going to say it anyway, is the importance, smaller class sizes down in the kindergarten level?
From an instructional end, and as we've always built the budget, we've always started with the classroom.
Correct.
And then as we've gone out, we've looked at what support systems do we have to support the classroom, which is where administrative and clerical fall. And we've gone out. So if you look at it from a priority, I've always been the priority to these classrooms. I've always recommended to you as a board to look at that classroom.
Well, and
I
I think it's
am
important.
concerned from the perspective of this incoming kindergarten, knowing that there are some of those students who have no school experience. We have some, and I'm going by memory here, so it's probably less than a handful that I've approved the kindergarten waiver. So these are young kindergartners coming in. They are after the September 1st deadline, but before the December 1 that we've approved the waiver. So they're already younger, so they're, I don't know the students, so forgive me, but they probably are more general, more immature than some of their developmental. They grow. So to give every child the best chance, it is lower class sizes that I would recommend. And 20, 21 kids in a class is a good number to at least start. I think any teacher with what they went through this past year and our, I'm going to say, uncertainty for this year, the more opportunity we can give them to provide that one-on-one and then individualize, I mean, we should be proud of what we've accomplished over the last couple of years from the perspective, we had no third graders in the middle of a pandemic identified by the state saying you have to be retained. Not many districts can say that, and I think that from a commitment of this board to try to lower them, we've been adding this sections of each grade level. Now we're at a point where kindergarten. I personally would recommend this. That's why it's out there. And if I had to weigh it, I really would like to see lower class sizes to give every child the support that they need. Again, not that I want to cut an administrator, but we have an opportunity here that I have a vacancy. And is it a way of shuffling the funds with that vacancy? Now, again, I have to sit down with the administrative team and work this through.
But the money's there right now.
The money, if we base it on flat enrollment and what the state has given us, the money is there to do it right now, and you're putting some money into fund balance. And that fund balance is really those things we need to watch. I mean, a couple of years ago, I think when fuel prices were out, we had a high $4 plus a gallon per day.
But we, as it is now, we can still afford an administrator. I mean, we didn't have any talks in the spring about we were in dire straits and had to cut.
Correct, you're correct. So if you...
And I'm all for, of course, smaller class sizes for kindergarten.
Just take the number and swing it. And when you look at FICA retirement, let me back up. Based on our current administrators, with Mr. Kosher retiring and assuming someone internally is moving up to principal and some type of net one reduction, that's where that number comes out. That's FICA, retirement, healthcare, and so forth. So that would be a swing that we would actually be using some fund balance if we did those other things too.
No, I just, like I was a year ago, not interested in like cutting an administrator at this time. I just feel like we're still in the pandemic, getting out of it. I just feel like that it's not like we can't afford it. So, and hopefully we're not just flat. Hopefully we don't go bad. I know we don't, but I mean that's how I feel anyhow. I mean, there's other things on here that I'd also like to discuss. There, you know, that may or may not.
Go for it. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I agree in budget increases for all areas of every classroom. So, but I feel like I'd like to look back at what the art and choir band teachers mentioned about how they use supply money, because I kind of forgot. Just to see if you know, the amount you have on here is too much or enough, you know, maybe we could lessen that or at least put it down, take it down a little.
Because you want to make sure it's sufficient. And maybe that number isn't needed, is that what you're
Well, I'm
saying?
sure it can be spent. I
Right.
mean, every classroom has to spend
Absolutely.
extra money, so, but yeah, maybe we might not, and don't have to give them much. And then the pay to participate, I think we need to discuss that. I think there's a lot of different options we could do as far as not just cutting it all or getting rid of it all, but there's so many different scenarios where it's not totally cut. But
Yeah, I am not for decreasing an administrator. I think with everything that's going on in the world right now, I think we have kids with more issues that would need extra support in school. Did we, during interviews, do we have 2 qualified people that would be able to fill the positions if we stuck with filling Mr. Kosher's spot and then adding another one elsewhere?
Well, I thought that we would be able to find qualified individuals.
In a timely manner? I mean, it's going to be here before we know it.
We will, based on the board's direction, yeah, we as quickly as possible fill it. I mean, if we are doing an administrative reduction, then I'm looking internally for the principal, which narrows my pool of candidates. If we are looking to keep administrator, you know, there's a pool of candidates that opens up because of the experience of the person. Doesn't mean always it's a good fit. I mean, you've got to it's a gamble when you go with someone from outside the district. Or vice versa, moving someone up internally and then backfilling the position. There was no principals that chose to move to a different building.
Okay.
So from the existing building, they all.
I just think it's something we should visit maybe next year, kind of keep things in place and then visit next year.
Sorry, the administrator?
Yeah.
But when you say eliminating an administrator, I don't think that he's saying there wouldn't be anybody in that spot.
No, I understand that. I just think that,
Have an extra person.
yeah,
No, nobody that's currently hired is gonna be, or getting cut, but that.
No, I'm just saying the point of it's not that there isn't going to be a body there, because
Correct.
that doesn't work. But that's not what he's talking about. That's the only point I was making with what you were saying.
Just something to think about too, personally, about that, is if you do hire someone from the outside and they are cut, and you're bringing them in for a year, and if there is, again, we're talking about something we're predicting that we don't have, we're making some assumptions and we don't have all the facts or assumptions, right? So that it's kind of hard to do that, but just keep that in mind too, that's all.
anybody else on the board have any comments or direction?
I feel I'm in agreement with keeping the administrator if possible, and maybe, like you mentioned, promoting within, and then backfilling. I think that would be a great option. And then I do get the benefit of having more than one administrator there. And I do feel that's important, especially during these times. And I do understand what the other board members are currently saying, and that is important to me. There are other things, the bus replacement, I do feel we could put that off another year. And certain things, I do understand that within the next year, this may be another topic that comes up if we need to cut an administrator, but I would be willing and would rather, I think, put it off for a year and see if we could still fill that position. But I'm not so comfortable, I don't know. I prefer promoting within rather than like going and reaching out from somebody not within our district, but I also don't want to see our other two schools to get shaken up. You know, if the other administrators are happy there, you know, I feel that's important. They've been doing a great job. For us to switch them from students this year, I don't think would be beneficial there. So I'm okay with the rest. I wish we could keep it all, so.
One thing would cause you to remember on your bus replacement, we have several buses that are 2009, so they're nearing 12 years, 13 years. End of their life expectancy from
Would you say 12 years is about?
12-ish.
Usually on the road, about 12 years, and once then we rotate it into sub-buses, so when bus needs to be repaired, then we have a couple of spare buses to be used as needed. So once you rotate, it's the mileage, it's the meeting the state of Michigan inspections, making sure we have the buses in shape to get those tags that we want a red tag, we want them green and ready to go.
And our buses do take a beating because of the difference.
And I just think the bus replacement, I mean, Angela, you've been here a little bit, we say it every year, we need to do it.
Yeah, and I know we just got a nice
And
new one,
the
but
money's
that's
here to do it, so I think that we absolutely have to start doing that, or it's going to be, we're going to say we're going to wait till next year comes, and something happens, you know, so I think we just,
So could the
We have to
computers and
start.
laptops possibly be put on hold? Because those have all been.
This dollar value is determined so that in 5 years, you'd have enough money to start
to replace them.
So I mean, if we wanted, we could cut that, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. If we wanted, we could cut that amount maybe a little bit. If we felt like we wanted to find some money somewhere.
Yeah, because aren't we going to do this again in October? Like when we know what our student count is?
The next amendment would be February, because we capture not only our student count, but we also capture the movement of staff with insurance and the final placement of staff. So it's typically first meeting in February. We typically don't do an amendment at this time. We did one last year. You remember they did us they said we were being cut $475 per pupil, and then they found it in August. So we did an amendment there, and then this year, because the timing of our per pupil came after the board approved the budget, so. The January one is going to be the larger, but now you'll have staff in their right for, I should say, February. They'll have chosen any changes in their insurance, et cetera, that we anticipate in '24.
Well, I'm just gonna say, as far as the administrators are concerned, I think we need to leave it for now. I am concerned about, again, going in, we're still in a pandemic, so to speak. There's still gonna be issues. I think we need that administrator there. And just leave it, so we see what happens. I just don't think we're really settled yet with what's coming down the line.
And honestly, that's the direction. I mean, if we just reverse the pay to participate and we keep the administrator, we're just putting nothing in the fund balance. It's a pretty easy switch.
Give that to me again.
If we keep pay to participate,
Oh, gosh.
which, I mean, I'll always say that athletics is a privilege.
Right.
Even though I would like to see it, but it's the last thing on the list for me. If, we're keeping everything in the classroom and we need the bus replacement, we need to set money aside for the turf, we need to set money aside for laptops, for computers. I mean, all that stuff at the top is all essential. Pay to participate is kind of the last thing, so if we just flip-flop that, it keeps the administrator, and then it's pretty much a wash, we don't put anything into our balance. I would like to see a discount for multi-sport athletes. Some sort of structure.
Yeah, here's the thing, with the pay to play. Everyone sitting at this table, and who sat with me longer than a year knows what my feeling is about it. And your point is well taken. But I do think it's an important thing to try to do something. And if we don't feel we want to eliminate it completely, you are right. There are families with not only multiple sports, but multiple children that are participating. And, we talked all about when we had money, we would do this, when we had money, we would do that. Here's one way of reaching out and saying, here's what we want to give back to our tax-paying parents or whatever. So if obviously I'm the only one that wants to eliminate it, but if we don't eliminate it completely, we've got to do something with it to help our families. It's been 35 plus years that we have done pay to play. This is the time the money is here to figure out something. And we keep talking about it, but we never come up with another plan other than saying we don't want to eliminate it completely.
Can you
Now's
form a
the time.
committee?
What do we do?
Can we form a committee as opposed to sitting here and discussing multiple scenarios to discuss?
As far as that pay to play.
Well,
Okay.
Or do we have
But sports have
already-
started, so I guess I don't understand, we're sitting at the table. If it's multiple sports, it's very easy. I don't think we need a committee, we just pick a dollar amount. And if the dollar amount, what was, to eliminate it was 55,000, dollar amount is 30,000. So whatever that, let's say, we're gonna cut it by $30,000, whatever that is. I don't think we need a committee, I think we just need to figure it out.
Give me a dollar, but we'll figure it out.
how do you figure out if it's just a dollar?
Yeah, if we need to figure out if it's a child participating in more than one sport, there would need to be some kind of diagram, right? Or you're saying you just want to cut it all across the board, or it depends on if a student participates in more than one sport.
Well, maybe a start is, we're not gonna eliminate it, maybe a start is if you are a multiple sport family or a family with more than one child that is in sports, that there's a discount. Start there, that's a great start that we've never talked about.
But that's why maybe we should have a committee to be able to
You
talk.
don't need a committee to just say, how much is it pay to play? It's
I understand if there's
$150.
many options to discuss about a tier, or, because then now what if I just have one child that plays a sport and I don't get a discount?
No.
Like, No, I wouldn't, but somebody that
No.
has 2 children.
You would get a discount if you want to eliminate it completely, but no, you don't. All I'm saying is, we've talked about this forever. We talked about it back in January or February, whenever it was, and it keeps getting pushed. So just, we don't need a committee. If we needed a committee, we should have had a committee 6 months ago. Sports are starting up again this year, extracurricular things.
Would you guys be okay if we just pass this to Brian to work with Chris Reinhardt and sit down and say, okay, let's work out some kind of, discount? I agree with the 2 discounts that you're talking, as far as multiple sports and multiple children. Or no, do you want to go somewhat another direction?
I like both of those ideas, but like, there's a little bit of urgency.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, people are starting to pay their pay-to-play.
And that dollar amount does affect whether some kids
Kids
come.
Maybe
Some
kids
don't.
aren't going to
Just
participate.
a dime didn't.
Exactly.
I've seen other districts that charge $75 to pay to play, and that covers whatever sports they want to play for the year.
That way,
So like a one-time fee
A
for
one-time
all
fee.
sports to opt into sports.
so if you have 3 or 4 children, you pay 75 for each one.
Would have covered everything.
I'm saying there's many options and many ways that can go about it, for sure.
What is it right now?
150 and 120, and there's some reduction.
Per sport.
30%.
I'd be willing to for sure look at numbers, but I'm not so sure if we're really thinking about cutting the work administrators and we need an extra teacher to just take that 55 for sports. During this year, I know we keep putting it off, like remember Telto was saying, but this is still a return after this COVID time. I don't know if this is something that is extremely essential at this time.
I never said it was essential. I said it's something that I think we need to do.
Sure,
It's
I
not
agree,
essential.
and we've all been talking about it. I think athletics should definitely be covered. However, I'm just questioning whether or not this is the time for us to make that move.
When would be the time?
Maybe next year, when we know where we're for sure, even if there's gonna be mandates in effect, what if all of a sudden we can't play sports again? Or other things, it's even just a waste of our time, we really don't even know what's gonna happen this coming year.
Who plays sports?
I'm hoping, and we're all hoping, but sometimes I feel like, right now, if we're talking about cutting an administrator and needing an extra teacher.
Well, I think we've already talked about we're not going to cut the administrator. We have to make it pretty clear.
Correct, but
Sitting
we
at the
still
table.
need to make our fund balance, so.
But we're okay.
We're okay.
So that's numbers.
Yeah.
We're okay.
It's right in front
I
of
mean,
you.
we're only talking if this is what we should do, or could do, or want to.
Correct.
Is adding the kindergarten teacher a go from a direction?
Yes,
Yes.
at least for,
Absolutely.
yeah. I think that's,
That's a no-brainer.
So as I keep going out from the classroom, do you want to add art and band dollars at this point?
Well, the art and band dollars only came up when I was talking about the pay-to-play. So let's look at that. If we're not going to talk about the pay-to-play stuff, to me, it's equal to the art.
No, art and
band.
Art and band are graded curriculum.
Correct.
Sports are not.
No.
Sports is a privilege, as Kyle pointed out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Band,
But that,
but and art are graded
really brought it
curriculum.
up when I talked about the pay-to-play that I've been talking about forever.
I
So I'm
brought
just
it up
asking.
because I said if we have surplus of money, it should go to curriculum.
Yes, yes. After I brought up the,
Okay, yes, think about the timing when I brought it up, it had nothing to do with youth organizing. It had to do with where I thought the money should go.
okay, so what do we want to do with the art supplies and requiring the band?
I feel it's needed and I would like to see it.
I think we need to keep it. I'd say leave it in the budget.
absolutely.
Keep the art and music?
Yep.
The set-asides? Is the set-asides at the top left, turf, laptop, computers?
Don't start down.
I was just gonna say, that's my worry, that if we don't do this now, we're gonna hit 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, we're not gonna have the money. I've sat in on enough budget meetings in the district to know that that's what happens.
So looking at the last item would be then the pay to participate. One. Am I hearing not to eliminate is the consensus?
I would say not eliminated, but half it. Half it or make some adjustments for.
Did you say half?
Half, like,
Yeah.
half.
Or get to 30,000.
Just cut it in half?
Well, whatever the number may, I mean, right now it's at 55. If you can find a way to get it to 30.
If you cut it in half for the year, see what happens. See what a year's worth of sports of just paying.
Half.
Now, are you saying the $75 per sport or the $75 per athlete? Is that what you said? So if I was an athlete in 3 sports, I'd just pay $75. Try it for a year, whichever one of those 2 things went, and just see what happens, see where we go. See how the money goes with that. And then you may be able to look and see that you can do more after trying it for a year.
And when we have budget talks next year, we'll know.
What we
how
did.
it's done, so we want to
Correct.
discount.
Correct.
A different admin, we have one more time.
Correct.
You'd even know in February when you start talking about the budget, because you'll know a half of
Yeah, like the fall numbers.
fall, and winter sports would already have been almost over
Right.
in February.
So we'll have at least some numbers to look at.
$75 per athlete, regardless of how many sports you play. My follow-up question is there payoff in terms of if I volunteer, I can bring it down to 0?
No, unfortunately. You're not going to do it, we don't have volunteers.
I'm
We
sorry,
never
you-
have volunteers.
Did you say no? I didn't hear. You said no for paying off? It's just a flat?
I would say flat.
That's what I say, just
Yeah.
flat.
See how that goes.
Well, let's see how it goes.
We do have to have a different rate for free reduced loss, which I like we've done other.
Correct.
Makes sense.
I don't know
What
about
about
that.
high school level?
Okay.
Is there a way
Say
to get
whether
a
you're
kind of
middle school.
number on
Yeah, okay.
number of athletes that participate throughout the school? Because I would lean towards $100. If we're only charging one class, I would lean towards 100 because I think, if you've got
So that's
200 athletes in our high school, that's $20,000.
Right.
And I thought 30,000 would be a good number to get to.
So put it in context, if you have 2 sport athletes, they're in high school, they'd be normally paying $300.
Right.
This model would be either 75 or 100. In the middle school, I'd be normally paying $240 for the 2 sport. I'd pay a 75 or 100 flat for the year.
But I'd like to know how many athletes,
I can get that number.
200 seems high in high school
No.
with the overlap.
Oh, with the overlap, that's true. I wonder how many there are actually.
That's what I'm saying, how many
Yeah.
individuals.
What's the actual number of people participating in sports? And not
It's just the
overlapping
same
sport.
Because maybe it should be 150 for, I don't know what that number is. But if there's only 100 individual athletes, that's
That's
either
participating.
$7,500 or $10,000. And that,
Well, then is it
Well, I can tell you we have
easier?
more fall sport athletes going out now because we have to order more helmets. So we have more people going out for fall sports.
So are you saying that it's a safer bet to make it $100? To see, yeah, okay.
yes, so that, I think you will come in under the target number for less than that. That's just my opinion.
I can do that to start.
I can do that too, to start. And then let's look at our numbers again.
$100
It is.
gets you in the door, play as many sports as you can for $100. For middle school and high school, no work off, volunteer hours. And then I'll do whatever the prorations for free reduced ones that we're required to do. Okay. This will come to you back in the next one as a budget amendment, but I will work with Mr. Reiner particularly on this one to get that communication out now. So we'll start that before the official approval. If you don't mind. Just because of the false one. Okay. And I will go on the bus.
Okay, our next section of the meeting is public comments. Just one brief announcement. In the spring, we were reading emails that parents were sending us because we were not in an open session. Now that we are having our meetings and we're back in open session, I will not be reading emails. I'll just acknowledge it that we received emails and that what the topic might be. So for over the summer months here, I did receive one email from a parent, again, just expressing concern about wearing masks. So at this time, any member of the public may address the board. Please state your name, and we need that for record. And if you have 3 minutes to address the board. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board at this time? Just please, up to the podium, please.
My name is Amanda Cloud, and I recently
I'm sorry,
started
what's your last name?
MCLEOD.
Thank you.
So I am just with you tonight just as a frustrated parent, and just been following the situation that's been going on politically, and with COVID, I do understand you guys are in difficult positions, and that you have a lot of big decisions, sitting on your lap coming up here. And I guess I'm just asking that you consider, you were elected and, you are representing the parents, and that your decisions would reflect that. So what I wanted to address is basically the quarantine and contact tracing policy. After I read it, I saw the guidelines we'll be following for fall. I was alarmed at the discriminatory two-tiered protocols being required of schools. So the guidelines punish the unmasked and unvaccinated students and staff with 14-day quarantine and repeated testing, while vaccinated students face almost no quarantine time, 2 weeks of quarantine time for close contact with positive case, even without showing symptoms, for an unmasked or unvaccinated student. So 2 separate sets of rules. The close contact is defined as someone who has been within 6 feet of a positive tested individual, asymptomatic or not, for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. So really when you look at that, that could be an entire class, okay? Now we know come fall that one positive case could result in mass quarantine of classes. And I guess what I'm concerned about is that this policy is already in place in other parts of the country and is already causing mass quarantine of, the majority of school. It's happening down in Alabama, it's happening in Georgia. And what I'm concerned about is just that it is increasing the vaccine pressure on young students who want to avoid being punished by local health department policies. And you really need to consider that as board members, what the effect of these policies have on the families economically, mentally, all for a, if we were to look at the numbers and we were really to look at it, it's for a virus with a 0.00 or 0.999% survivability rate. So I would ask you, what is different about this year than the past year with flu that we need to have so much new regulations put in place? I also am concerned about just the economic effect. You would think a single mom, her child is quarantined for 2 weeks at a time and then she has to pay to get testing to, she has to take time off of work. These are things that I believe I'm asking for the board to be transparent, because before someone starts school, they really need to understand what the ramifications of this quarantine contact tracing policy are, what information is being given to the local health department and how it can affect them before they make the decision to re-enroll their kids in school, because it's already been a difficult year last year. And I'm just asking whether the board, holds the parents a questionnaire, going out, clearly stating in a document what this will mean, because when you say you have a choice to not mask, but you're punishing an unmasked individual with longer quarantine, it's not really freedom of choice. And I think that's false advertising, and I think it's dishonest. And I'm asking for transparency. So I would appreciate that. I would also ask, I know there's a new House bill passed by Hornberg 5913, I believe it is, which allows, I think your board has to monthly now revisit your COVID back to school policies with the public. And I'm just asking that during that time, you consider, maybe other doctors' opinions, parents' opinions. Let's look at the facts. Let's see how many people, students in Michigan under the age of 21 without comorbidities have died from COVID. The answer is 0, okay? And we are punishing the mass. And it is allowing now local health departments and unelected officials to gain access into our local schools. And I think parents should be able to decide the risk-benefit factor. And I would like you guys to decide the risk-benefit factor and not just take your information from the CDC, who has changed their tune 3,000 times since last year. Okay, so that's all I'm asking. Transparency, honesty. We have flattened the curve and we have protected the vulnerable, and we've done all that. And now it's time to consider protecting our kids and the effects that these policies are going to have on them long term. And is it necessary? Is it really necessary?
Okay, your 3 minutes are up.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Board members, good evening. My name is Teresa Ranger, and I have the pleasure of being the Richmond Education Association president. And I'm here this evening to thank you guys, all of you, the board members, the Board of Education, for supporting the teachers through the parameters that you provided Mr. Wamsley for our recent contract negotiations, which led to a tentative agreement that you'll be voting on this evening. Recently, our membership ratified a 3-year contract that shows that this board supports Richmond teachers. I would also like to recognize Mr. Wamsley and his efforts as we negotiated over many hours, over several days, in exchange proposals and ideas with fidelity and perseverance. So again, I thank you for your continued support and for all you do for the Richmond Education Association. Thank you.
I'm a parent. I have 2 children in the middle school currently. I just want to read a press release that went out a couple days ago. It was almost a week ago now, and it's grown exponentially since then. And it printed out really small, so bear with me. This is actually from Save Our Kids. It's a Michigan parent organization rejects mandate against school children in open letter to President Biden. Governor Whitmer, CDC, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and school districts across the street. In Michigan, more than 100 parent advocacy groups across the state of Michigan reject mandates, local or national, that force or require children, preschool through college, to be masked, vaccinated, close contact quarantined, or submit to asymptomatic COVID testing in order to attend school or play sports. We represent approximately 120,000 parents, which, again, this was 6 days ago. The number has probably doubled at this point. From over 100 parent advocacy groups in a great state of Michigan, and we hereby inform you that we will not allow a repeat of the 2020-2021 school year. We parents have had enough of forced mandates, knee-jerk reactions, and government overreach into decision-making regarding the well-being of our children. We will not co-parent with the government. We have watched our children succumb to the harm at the hands of the government, special interest groups, and inept leadership, and will not tolerate the continuation of it. We believe in choice and parental rights. We believe that all children should have the right to an education free from mandates that have not been proven necessary or beneficial. Universal and one-size-fits-all approaches have failed Michigan school children. Children are not political pawns, and our tax dollars are not to be used to cater to the demands of special interest groups, unions, or any other political organization. As we enter the 2021-22 school year, parents must have a choice. Education will not be conditioned upon wearing a mask, scheduled COVID testing, or vaccination statuses. Our children will not be mandated to miss school for 14 days due to close contact quarantines. Parents will be the decision makers for the health and well-being of our students, and we will no longer remain silent. We will stand up for our children and their rights. To the school boards, school administrators, local government leaders, and businesses who have respected parental choice, we applaud you. We anticipate and appreciate your continued support for our children and our rights as parents to do what is best for them as individuals. We do not wish to take away from the learning environment of any child, and therefore support choices for individual families. For the officials who do not support parents or our right to choose, please take note. Our voice, our vote, and our dollars will be directed to the schools, candidates, and businesses that support Michigan's parents and students. Calls for mandates, lockdowns, and universal masking in schools are not rooted in science and have caused significant harm to the most vulnerable in our state. We parents have made this known to you for over a year, and yet your message continues to be one of authority and cruelty, disregarding the social and emotional well-being of Michigan's 1.4 million students. Over 120,000 of us have linked arms as mothers, fathers, educators, healthcare professionals, and community members to make sure that parents always have a seat at the table when the issue is education of our children. We implore you to do what is right and to stop pushing fear, political agendas, and bad science at the feet of our most precious members of society. Enough is enough. Good evening. My name is Jill Manchuk, and just wanted to echo on what Amanda had said. I know last year you were required to put together a return to learn plan. I know this year you took the stance of personal choice for us parents. Is there, along with that recently both the health department and CDC have come up with recommendations, not mandates, but recommendations. Is the board, are you required to put together, even though it is just a recommendation, will there be coming from seeing other school districts of just a Q&A of, will I be quarantined if I'm close, if I come in contact with somebody? Will I contact tracing, the temperature checks? Will there be different, I think in the health department, there's a flow chart of what to do if you do come in contact, and it's different for vax versus not vax. Will the district be putting out a Q&A so parents are aware of what the school year could look like? I get personal choice on whether I want to wear a mask, get the vaccine, that's not mandated, but, and I know this isn't, you're not going to reply right now, I can certainly follow up with an email too, but just some questions that I have, that a lot of us have, and maybe this will come up in the next meeting in August, that's typically when you do a COVID update. And additionally, and I'll put this in an email as well, back in May, Governor Whitmer put out the Michigan Blueprint Comprehensive Student Recovery Plan. It's about 40 pages. And initially after it came out, I haven't seen much talk about it since. But in there, it's kind of like a long-term, 6 to 18-month plan, toolkit for districts to help students recover from the pandemic. And just some brief questions on some items in that. In there, they had recommending that districts put together a committee. Is that something Richmond's going to be doing? None of the stuff in there is mandatory, but there's things related to academics, wellness, school climate, so just a whole gamut of information. Some of the alarming things initially looking at it was related to the student health portion, students having access to a school nurse for the upcoming school year, having local health clinics, partnering with the local health department to provide vaccine information to students that are eligible to get the vaccine, partnering with local nurses and making any key decisions for student health, working with pharmacists to disseminate information. So just those initially were some alarming things that I think a lot of us would agree that the health of my child is between myself and my pediatrician, not, I don't think the school needs to be brought into that. And again, it didn't say anything was mandatory, just after it came out in May, there wasn't, haven't really heard anything else about it. So just some initial questions I had, and I can certainly follow up in an email. So thank you.
Good evening, I'm Sheldon Paul. I'm a parent at the elementary school. I've been on the front lines of this entire thing from the start. I know there's a lot of rumors coming now, and some of them are not rumors, we don't know they're not, that there was a lot of recommendations, and now possibly mandates coming. I know there's probably going to be a big meeting here soon to discuss a lot of different things. Just want to point out some facts. One, all of our students have played together in sports, played in the mud, probably shared popsicles together all summer long. Truthfully, we are not seeing a spike. I have a lot of friends in the hospitals and in the labs, working behind the scenes that see everything that's happening. Your PCR testing does not state whether it's flu, the first strand of COVID, or the new Delta variant that I can tell you right now is not true. It is nothing but fear being thrown out there because they cannot tell the difference between it, and that's under a microscope. Your hospitals are not testing that. If you come into a hospital right now and they say, "Are you vaccinated?" They go, "Yep." They don't even test you. You can be laying there with symptoms and they will not test you. But if you say you're unvaccinated, they instantly test you and then you're thrown into another hole. It's not what it is. They are blowing these numbers completely out of proportion. The CDC has changed their guidelines a million different times, which several parents have said here tonight.
Last year we were wearing masks, and Fauci came out and literally said, oh wait, we weren't really sure, and yeah, those don't really work. Especially the cloth ones that we're wearing, or anything like that. This virus is, a free press today stated that our white-tailed deer are getting it. So what's next? Can't hunt? Because we might get it? Like, come on. You know, a vaccine's not gonna do it. It's not. Your flu vaccine is only 40% effective. And there's a lot of jobs that don't even mandate that. And now all these jobs and places are trying to mandate this vaccine. Well, last time I checked, my body, my choice. We can sit here and have all kinds of other things that we can choose for ourselves or our children or whatever, but yet, oh no, you're gonna do this. You've gotta take this vaccine. This is a vaccine. Okay, vaccines work. Smallpox, polio, you know, the chickenpox. They all work because it doesn't cross-contaminate between animals and humans, and you know, it's not mutating constantly. The flu mutates, the cold, all this is a respiratory thing. Our masks are so dirty, it's the dirtiest place on our mouths. You know, it's never gonna go away. We just gotta power through it. It is what it is. And it doesn't help when the political officials are stating, hey, well, this is what's going on, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. But yet, the people on the front lines are going, no, this isn't what's going on, because they're ignoring science. I want our board to really follow up with multiple people, not just Dr. Fauci, not just the WHO, not just the CDC, because they keep changing their tune for everything. People have been in power for too long, and they like the power, and they're hungry, and they want more, and they want control. We're not having an outbreak in our community, so just think about that, okay? I've had it, I survived, my entire family had it, we survived. Yes, people die. People die every day. You get in your car and you drive out the room 5 minutes later, and something happens. Anything can happen. But really think about all this. Really do your research. I know they're censoring a lot of different stuff right now, but there are a lot of doctors coming out and saying stuff, and then they're just hushing them up. Those are the ones you want to listen to, not the ones who are being paid to say something. Not the one, not what celebrities are saying. Last time I checked, celebrities don't have doctor's degrees or anything like that. They get paid millions of dollars to be on TV. You know, really know what you're getting yourself into. And work with all your parents. Do you understand? You gotta work with all of us. So just do what's best for the kids. All right? Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Bethany Bruceman. I'm a grandparent. My grandson goes to the elementary. I just had a son graduate last year. I've sent 3 through Richmond. My husband is an alumni. I sat here tonight and I listened to you guys talk about curriculum and things, especially class sizes, kindergartens, things like that. But what I didn't hear anyone discuss is, I heard you discuss population, little bodies in a classroom, but what I didn't hear you discuss was the real problems. When I sat and I helped my daughter out, doing the schooling with my grandson, very smart little boy, doesn't need a lot of help, very independent. But what I seen with his classroom in the first grade were lack of parental supervision. The internet was always going down for some of the children, myself included. Us grandparents, parents, we're not teachers. We don't have teaching degrees. The students, we're failing them. You, the board, superintendent, the teachers, we're failing them. And I haven't heard anybody say that. Mental health amongst the high school and middle school children, sad. The things that I have heard some of these children talk about in the groups when they've come to my house and they're hanging out, things like that, it's sad. It's disgusting. I'm embarrassed for us all. We're not taking things serious. Our children are suffering. My grandson is suffering. How do we stand by and allow that to happen? We can talk about budgets. We can talk about population. We're not supporting the teachers that are really struggling. Because I have friends who are teachers. There's a few in our district. They're struggling. We're not supporting them. We're not supporting our students. We're supporting ourselves and sitting here and making ourselves comfortable and telling ourselves we're doing the right things by our children. No, we're not. CDC, WHO, Dr. Fauci, a lot of different branches of our government, our governor, whatnot. End of the day, my child, my choice. Any one of you who have children up there, grandchildren, I'm sure you feel the same way about certain things in your private home. No one would want somebody coming into our house of government, whatnot, and telling us what we're supposed to do with our children. I'm not going to come into your house and tell you what to do. Why don't we support our students? Why don't we support all the parents, your staff that you're talking about? Why don't we support them? Why don't we make schools safe again? What are we doing about the mental health of our students from preschool on to 12th grade? Because they're struggling. Children crying before school, not wanting to go, stomach aches. You give these computers, the internet, it doesn't work. Schoolology, that was a joke. I don't understand why we're not supporting one another. I'm watching all of these school districts come out with the letters to the parents. And there's, in the legal language, a lot of loopholes. And some of us parents are like, oh look, our school district, they put out there, they're going to support us. But there's always a few loopholes in there when you read it. We should be ashamed of ourselves that we are not standing up for our children more than what we are appearing to be. Our children are counting on us. I personally have raised 5. I ran my own child care for years, so I've raised other people's children. We're failing right now. We are failing so bad. And if we were given a report card on us as adults right now, one big fat F. We are not supporting the future generations at all. Everything we need to know, we learn by kindergarten. Manners, do's and don'ts, we don't hit our best friend, I mean, just crazy little things like that. But really, those are basics that take us through life. And anything we start deciding here, and we carry on, we impose upon the generations that are coming up that we're responsible for, how do we even look at ourselves in the mirror, knowing that we have the power, and we let them down? It's sad. So I would like to think that Richmond, we're a little better than that here. I would like to think that we care about our children. It's not something we just put on a piece of paper or, we a feel-good moment or we're pacifying as parents or whatnot. I would like to think that we're going to make a difference here. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thanks.
name is Stephanie Siska. I want to piggyback a little bit on what Bethany said, but I'm talking more for the minority of our students. My stepdaughter is in special education, and I can tell you the mask impacted her horribly last year. I had 2 teachers that flat out said they couldn't understand what she was saying, so they'd agree with whatever answer it was and move on. That was not good for her education. I don't want to see that continue this year. The masks are damaging for her education. For her specials that she needed to try and log in and out of them was very difficult, and she's not getting that face-to-face that she needed. So our special education population especially was suffering through all this, and I don't want to see it happen again. Now, last year we had to contact physicians to try and get special privileges to get the shields and things. Our physicians that we have would not agree. They did not want to attach their names to that because they did not, if your child got COVID, they don't want the responsibility of them not having the mask. I don't want to see that happen again this year, and I hope we can do better. On the flip side of that, my son was one of the ones that was ahead of his teachers during virtual, was playing Minecraft on his school laptop and was able to do a group chat and delete the teacher out of there. I have a problem with this Minecraft being on their laptops and easily accessible, especially during virtual. If it were to happen again, can we please put some kind of parental lock or something on there? I'm not the only parent that has been upset about this. I just really would like to see a normal school year for these guys. I mean, coming from the high and the low education kids, it impacted them in so many different ways. And as a working parent too, I cannot be there for all of their needs and still work. And I hope that we can come to terms with something that's gonna work for everybody and as normal as possible. Thank you.
To our superintendent and legislative update.
Here the update on the bottom. As I said back in June, as I continue to say, unless there's a different direction the board would like to take, we are planning for a normal school year. Communication will go out to the parents the week of the 23rd. As you know, we are starting later. We're not starting school until the 13th. So in that communication will be an option for parents to choose to have a virtual option for their families. We are in the settlement that was agreed with the teacher union. There are some changes that will occur in that virtual option. That will also be communicated that week. So, again, as I said before, reiterating what some of the parents saying, unless we are required, we are running a normal school year. So, I have no legislative update at this point. I would like to say at the last board meeting, there was a parent email that was read by the board. And this email, normally if a parent would come up to the podium and begin saying untrue statements about an employee in this district, it would have been shut down and corrected with the parent, corrected. This didn't happen, so for the sake of my own character, I would like to put it out there. The parent made accusations towards me that I was taking kickbacks and bribes or kickbacks to get kids vaccinated. That is farthest from the truth. And I hope this board recognizes that. I felt it was unjustly read and not defended at that time. And it should have been stopped or it should have been corrected at that time. So it's been sitting out there in the community, watched many times with an accusation against me that is not founded and untrue. So, put on the record that there is no kickbacks for getting kids vaccinated by the superintendent. That's all I have.
Items of interest from the board. We'll start with Pat, with you.
Don't forget that.
Danielle?
Good.
Angela?
Good.
Sherry? Margaret?
I just want to, Brian, to let you know, for myself, there isn't anyone who should be sitting at this table around the audience who would believe that nonsense that was written about you. It's unfortunate that it was read out loud, and everyone knows that's not true.
I just want to, with the board real quick here, I have, parents were requesting that we send our letter to the health departments of the state and the local. Do we have a problem with sending our letter to either one of them?
I thought we were already doing that.
We didn't do the health departments.
We did elected officials.
We did elected officials. So if that's okay, we're going to send that out. Okay, cool. Thank you. And I just want to welcome everybody back. I don't know if anybody has said that yet, but welcome back to the 21-22 school year. Okay, we're going to move on now to our action items. I am looking for a motion for the approval of the contract between the Board of Ed of Richmond Community Schools and the MEA Local 1 Richmond Education Association.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve a 3-year contract between the Board of Education, MEA Local 1 Richmond Education Association through June 30th, 2024, as outlined in the attached documentation.
Support. Okay, is there any discussion?
Other than I have to abstain legally because I'm related to someone who is part of the teachers union.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion carries and we have one that abstained. No. Okay, Marcus, help me out here. I haven't had this.
Are there any abstains?
I'm sorry. Okay, so are there any abstains?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, sorry about that. Okay, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of a transportation communication system.
I motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of the transportation communication system from C3 Communication Inc. for an amount not to exceed $23,876.28 as outlined in the attached documentation.
Supported. Any discussion?
As a backup indication, this is going to provide better coverage. Oftentimes the sprint coverage we have, we drop out in certain areas of the district. This is going to provide a better communication tool for our transportation department.
Is there any kind of training needed for it?
They'll get training on how to use the instrument. It's very simple system. But they will get training on how to use it, turn it on and make the call, etc.
Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Sherry?
Aye.
Margaret?
Aye.
Bridget? Danielle?
Aye.
Angela? Aye. Kyle?
Aye.
Deb? Aye. Motion carries. Be there no other business, the board will adjourn at 8:48.